How are electric current and electromagnetism related? All right, that is today's question, and glad you could make it. I appreciate it, and welcome to my channel. My name is Thomas, and I do videos on educational matters, uh, the three R's, the subjects that you learn in middle school and high school, but from a different perspective, from a more spiritual, sacred, and quantum perspective. I've dug up a lot of authors, heroes from our past who've done research and spent their whole life working on things to come up with answers. They never got any credit, but I think that they have great contributions to make, especially when you put them all together. And so I've attempted to do that here in this course. We will be covering many of those subjects later on, but first we're going to be covering this tree of life. And the tree of life is, I think, important because it serves as really an integrating tool. Fairly simple. There's a few integrating tools, but this one is kind of the most simple integrating tool to be able to not only learn from it itself, but learn from its structure and its relationships, and it helps you basically integrate large amounts of new information coming in that you'll be getting from these other courses. So when we study Tree of Life, we'll learn something from the Tree of Life, but we'll also have a structure that we will be able to utilize later when we learn other subjects. We'll be able to organize all the material and be able to recall it. We'll be able to put it into perspective, to be able to use it and apply it, properly when we kind of have it organized. It doesn't really do that much good to have a bunch of jumbled facts in your head. But if you have those facts unjumbled and put into an order, then you'll be able to have them at the ready. Okay, so that's the tree of life here. This is the diagram. It's just an ancient diagram. It usually is said to describe our faculties of consciousness, or a map of our consciousness. And it goes back at least to ancient Egypt. The ancient Hebrews used it. Some modern Hebrews, Orthodox Hebrews use it, or Orthodox Jews use it. Some Christian mystics and a ton of occultists, both of the good and evil variety, use it. And we can use it as a tool. It is a technology. It's not good or evil. Depends on the intention of the person using it. And we can use it to fend off attacks from some of those evil occultists, because if we know what their playbook is, if we know what their secret weapons are, then we can defend ourselves against them. So that's another part of the thinking here. So what we can see about the tree is it's got 10 different circles or spheres, and that are numbered 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then there is a thing here called the abyss, which is an implied circle or sphere with a dotted radius, circumference there. And then we have a 0 above the tree, which is a total of 12 different faculties. Those are our 12 different major faculties of consciousness, or our abilities of consciousness, or our aspects of consciousness. And then we go further in this course by taking the whole tree and shrinking it down. We're just trying to get to more detail here. We shrink down the whole tree, and then we apply the whole tree to each one of the 12 spheres. So we end up having 12 and 12 and 12 and 12, and so on, for a total of 144. And those are really like the more minor aspects of the tree of life, or the detailed aspects of the fractal aspects. So those are our fractal faculties. And I've compiled those into a guide. The free guide to the 144 fractal faculties of, or stages of life, history, cosmology, and spirituality. And I'd be happy to give that one away to you. If you want to click the link in the description, I'll send it right out to you. And it'll help you just as kind of a scorecard for watching all these videos, because I'm putting out 144 separate videos on the minor aspects of the tree. And it'll just help you kind of see how they fit into each other, and what they are when they're actually put into order. So just click the link below and you'll get that. Now, to start with, we're going to go through the 12 different aspects, and then at the end we will cover one of the 144 different aspects. Okay, now the 10th sphere is where we start from. The universe basically evolves or involves, created and evolves in this direction, and then we start here at the bottom and we evolve in this direction. So we start with the 10 and we gradually open up all these other spheres if we so choose. Some of us might not open any of them in our whole life and spend the whole life in 10. Some of us might open up just 9. Some of us open up 9 and 8. The further we go, the further we get into our spiritual evolution. Okay, so our 10th sphere is really, as you might have guessed, is about our survival, our sense of instinct. This is our wild animal consciousness. This is the law of the jungle, kill or be killed, fight or flight response, and also our basic life force that keeps us alive. That we know we have some kind of sense within us that keeps us alive. It operates, doesn't require our conscious input for it to operate. It keeps us breathing, keeps our heart beating, keeps our organs functioning, and our, keeps us, regulated properly. And it sniffs out the things that we need in order to keep ourselves alive. Okay, now when we go to the 9th sphere, whereas the 10th sphere is like our wild animal, the 9th sphere is more like our domesticated animal. This is what we get when after we're born. They take us home, and we're being cared for by loving, nurturing, or abusive family members, and we are also highly receptive. Everything is new and different to us. We don't know the difference between one thing and another because we don't have that kind of life history to be able to make those discernments. So we go into it rather blind, but we are very receptive to our influences, and those really are coming in the home. So we're really watching intently what our caregivers or anybody else in the home is doing, and we learn to imitate what they're doing gradually, and then we practice that imitation over and over again until we get it and we memorize it. This is how we learn to walk, and how we learn to talk, how we learn to hold the spoon in our hand, or how we learn to eventually maybe even ride a bike, or at least with training wheels or whatever. The first few years of our life, maybe up to 5 or 7 years old, we are here in the 7th sphere, or in the 9th sphere, very highly receptive and ready to learn through this process of imitation, practice, and then memorization. But again, we're blind, so we will copy abusive behavior as well as we will copy healthy behavior. Okay, then when we go to the 8th sphere, if the 9th sphere is the domestic consciousness, the 8th sphere is really the public, going out into public. We start to go to church, we start to go to school, we start to go to the mall or to the shopping center, grocery store, or we go to the rec center, and we're open to all these different influences out there that we weren't at home. And this area here is more dominated by the establishment, by the institutions, the institution, the educational institution, and the the church institution and the media institution and the government. These things are, and then all these big corporations, we are under the kind of the authority of these people when we go out into the real world, and so is everybody else. And they preach this idea about conformity. And so we are kind of pressured to conform to a certain system here that they prop up. They put together this system, and they don't really tell you about any of the problems of the system. So they're really trying to tell you the truth when it's convenient for them, but if not, they will cover it up and they will tell you something else. So the asphere is a trickster like that. It inverts logic and reason, and it inculcates belief systems that are harmful to us. But that is what is our key faculties at the asphere: our belief systems and our logical reasoning faculties, kind of at the lower level. Up here we get into higher reasoning faculties, but here this is just kind of superficial, on the surface reason, which is very useful, but it's clouded, polluted, twisted, inverted here at the asphere. So what happens is a lot of times they tell us that you're supposed to do something, but it goes against our nature that we've already picked up. It goes against what we've already learned, but this is a very impelling force because it's where all the resources are located, and it presents itself as being a consensus worldview. Everybody knows that. It presents itself as being really universal. Everybody accepts this. How can you not accept it? The emperor is wearing no clothes. How can you not see that? And you're sitting there and you're like, I just don't see these clothes that they're talking about. What's wrong with me? And you end up kind of blaming yourself for not seeing the emperor's clothes when there actually aren't any clothes. And so you end up kind of twisting your own logic and reason upside down by doing things like rationalization, circular reasoning, using consensus to justify truth, where you say, oh, just everybody believes it, so it must be true, even though right in front of my face I see it and it's not true. And so you have this ambivalence in your head where you see something, but everybody else is telling you something else. And so, you're kind of either forced to discard your own experience or to be shunned by being blocked out of the asphere. Or you can try to massage the approach. So what happens is you either kind of kowtow to this and you go into the asphere and you'll get stuck because you'll eventually keep rationalizing. You'll keep coming up with justifications to stay here. Or you can massage it by just giving it lip service and saying, yeah, I see the emperor's clothes, they're beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Just give me my thing and let me go. And so you recognize that this asphere here it's a useful tool, but it's also only our third faculty. We've got 9 more to go. They present this as this is the be all end all. This is the goal and the destination for your life and the measure of success. This is where all the experts are. This is all the institutions and the establishment and all the money. So this is where you're trying to get, and you're like, well, I don't know. So either you justify it and stay here, or you just give it lip service and massage it and say, yeah, whatever, let's go. And so you move on, and you have to come back periodically just to replenish yourself with resources. So you're always having this negotiation with the asphere. But if you just kind of give it lip service, give it the minimum that it requires, at least for the battles that you're not willing to fight. There are some battles that maybe you want to fight too. Okay, but you move over here to the 7th sphere, and where the asphere is telling you what the real world is about, the 7th sphere is the imaginary world. And so the 7th sphere is what you imagine when you imagine something better than what the A-sphere is presenting to you. So you use your imagination. You've also got inspiration, other people who've come before you that have inspired you. You've got intuition, which is your ability to go inside, ask a question, and go inside and get the answer, and then to be able to verify that answer. And then you have your creative spark and your pleasure principle, your ability to put things together into pleasing combinations that are new. Okay, and that all kind of ends up forming your higher calling, your mission in life, and it's really putting together all of your skills and abilities and your affinities and your situation in life, and figuring out how you can best contribute as an individual to this whole universe. Whereas here, they're wanting you to be a cog in the machine. Here, you're wanting to be in harmony with the machine by figuring out where you actually fit in as an individual. And that propels us to the next sphere, which is the center sixth sphere. This is our free will faculty. And if this were a map, it would say, you are here. This is where we reside. And our free will boils down to making decisions and paying attention. So what we're doing here in Jenna, we find ourselves mostly paying attention to this area here because this is what we're accustomed to. This is our comfort zone, so that's what we pay attention to. But we have the ability to make decisions too as part of free will, and so we can decide to turn our backs on these lower aspects and instead to pay attention to our higher aspects of the tree, even though these are undeveloped mostly, and it's kind of staring into the unknown. So we have to be able to summon a lot of courage to be able to do that. But if we can, then that propels us again forward to the next sphere, because then we pay attention to the fifth sphere. And the fifth sphere is really our sense of justice, or sense of right and wrong. And we are here, and we can think of it as like a mirror. Our actions are reflected here. This is like karma, cause and effect. As you sow, so shall you reap. What comes around goes around. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When we act, we get a reaction. Okay, and so the reaction that is reflected back to us is based on our violence, waste, and violation. So if we act violently, we get violence in return. If we act wastefully, we get wastefulness in return. And we can sit around and cry about it and say, oh, you know, I'm so unlucky. But if we look at it squarely, which we will if we're paying attention, we will say, no, I created that myself through my own actions. And if my own actions were more skillful, less wasteful, then that wouldn't have happened. So now we can begin to clean up our own actions by the feedback that we're getting. So we can use our karma as a teacher instead of a punisher. And we can use karma, think of karma not as punishment, you know, eventually, but protection. Because if we actually do clean up our actions, then we won't get this kind of negative response or reactions. Okay, similarly with the fourth sphere, we can start applying our attention to the fourth sphere, where the fifth sphere is about the enforcement of the law, natural law and order. The fourth sphere is about the articulation of natural law and order. And so this is usually in the form of a cosmology, ancient holy book. And these come from all around the world. Every tradition has one to some extent. And there are also many modern ones, theories of everything. And there are, you know, many different ones, and there are, you know, different interpretations of each one. And, you know, most of us grow up with just one or just a couple of these that are kind of in our upbringing. But what the basic approach of the fourth sphere is really of synthesis or syncretism. So this is involving studying many of these different cosmologies, as many as you can fit, as many as you can fit the time for, and then to use your intuition again, go inside and try to ask, how do I piece all these together? And you'll be able to come up with a coherent way of understanding all these different cosmologies that make sense to you. And again, you have to verify your findings, but you can use your intuition to help you syncretize all the different cosmologies. Okay, then we can apply our attention also to the abyss. The abyss is really about omens or magnetic charges. These are coincidences. These are anomalies, things that are recurring names and numbers, these synchronicities, uncanninesses, deja vus, different things that show us, if we're paying attention, that something strange is going on and that we need to pay attention. Closer attention. We need to put some emphasis on this action, and the action itself will have the event itself will have an action prescribed in it, and then we can act upon that action. So those are the two aspects of the psychic powers: psychic receptivity, to be able to notice these omens as an important part of the universal language, and then also to be able to act upon the omen. And that again requires courage. Okay, then when we go to the third, second, and first sphere that are at the top of the tree, these are our divine faculties within. 3, omnipotence. 2, omniscience. And 1, omnipresence. 3 is about being able to tune into sound synchronization. This is particularly about mantra, which is about chanting the different letters of the alphabet. Each letter of the alphabet contains a unit of power as well as meaning. Meaning is further down here, and then poetic meaning is the second dimension of language, and then the third dimension is just straight power, no meaning. So this is the idea of, if you watch tennis players, and they're trying to serve. When they try to serve, they're like, ugh! That is using the word as power. You're uttering a syllable, a part of the alphabet, but it just gives you that oomph that you need. And so that is being able to kind of systematize that through mantra or japa, which is the repetition over and over again of mantra. And really the power that you unleash is really your higher calling. The final culmination of your higher calling is in your potential here, if you can really untap all of those different letters of the alphabet that correspond to different faculties of our consciousness. Okay, and then the second sphere, omniscience, all-knowing, this is wisdom, our ability to solve problems. Now, if we can't really solve them on our own, we can rely upon an oracle or a divination system, a random chance procedure that we can ask and get answers. We have to still encode those answers or decode those answers, and that can be difficult. But we can also do it through meditation if we're highly advanced, if we're able to shut our mind off for long periods of time, which is difficult. But then if we do that, we can calm our mind to the point where it is completely calm and transparent, and we can see through the mind. And when we see through the mind all the way to the center or the superconscious, that is what we see is the image of wisdom, and that image is the solution to the problem. Okay, so that is how we tap into the second sphere, and the first sphere is really the image of wisdom. So the first sphere is that center, that superconscious, higher self, singularity at the center that we see when we calm the mind. Here we're seeing it, but here at the first sphere we're actually being it. We're merging with our higher self, with our singularity or superconscious mind. And when we do that, we recognize that what is at our deepest center is the same thing that's what's at everybody else's deepest center. So that unifies us all. We're all part of the same everything. And so if the first sphere is everything in the universe, the whole universe, then the zero sphere is nothing. The zero sphere is a total mystery because the zero sphere is not part of the universe. This is part of the universe. This is the whole universe. This is what is not part of the universe. Now, how they're the same is that the first sphere and the zero sphere are both part of the creator, but they are not, the zero sphere is not part of the universe. But it can still be very powerful, such as the number zero. When zero, even though zero doesn't exist in nature, in the universe, when it is used in mathematics, it allows mathematics to come up with, to take off. That's when the zero was invented and applied to mathematics back in the, dark ages, that allowed math to completely take off. And it's similar with the zero sphere here on the tree of life. So it represents mystery and nothingness, but it has a great power to it. But we only can use it indirectly because it's not part of the universe. So it's really part of the creator's private life that we don't know anything about. Okay, so those are the 12 basic aspects of the tree. Now then, what we're going to do at the end is we're going to look at one of the 144 different minor aspects of the tree. And today we are looking at number 20. How are electric current and electromagnetism related? And so this number 20 is called electromagnetic induction. And you can see here on the tree that number 20 corresponds to the 9th sphere, which is, learning. It is our domestic consciousness. This is our heightened receptivity. And then it corresponds to the abyss, fractal, of the 9th sphere. So it corresponds to electromagnetism, and it also corresponds to, omens. And, this is really also memory here in the 9th sphere. So electromagnetic induction, stage 20, is about inducing a field via receptivity or reciprocity. Electromagnetism appears out of nowhere as it now becomes more concentrated in the new reference system. Electromagnetism and current create each other. They are both uncharged. Electric current is a rotating unit of space moving through time or matter. When it opposes the 3D mass of an atom, the residue is 2-dimensional electromagnetism. When a two-dimensional uncharged magnetic motion or electromagnetism is applied in opposition to the mass or the atom, it leaves electric current, and vice versa. Electric current creates electromagnetism. Electromagnetism and current create each other and leave an electromagnetic field. They both appear out of nowhere when the other is present. They are not created, but now they are just more concentrated in the reference system that we are using. So they can now be measured. Electric current is as a result of an electron, uncharged, and an electron is nothing but a rotating unit of space. So current is equivalent to an outward scalar motion, a motion with no direction, just magnitude, an outward scalar motion of space through matter. and that opposes the mass, which acts inward. So the current is like short-term memory or circulating memory, the reminding function, where electromagnetism is a long-term memory or storage, stored in the field, in the electromagnetic field, as memory chips and bits. So the short-term memory comes in as an event, but it gets processed in the storage as chips and bits, just bits of information. And that happens once the amygdala is full. So when the short term gets full, it has to process the information to long term in dreaming, or forget it into the cloud, the amygdala. But much of the circulating memory or reminding function stays as current, reminding us of daily or periodic deadlines and responsibilities. But then there is much of the current that also gets processed into long-term memory and becomes electromagnetism. Okay, that is number 20, electromagnetic induction, the abyss fractal of the night sphere. And we will talk more about that as we go on with the course, and that we and eventually cover the reciprocal system of theory from Dewey Bernard Larson. And we will eventually kind of get into a unit where we look at what electricity and magnetism, what they are in the reciprocal system, and even how they can be used. And if any of you are engineers out there or whatever, you might be able to create a fancy device out of these things that you learn in the reciprocal system. Okay, well, that's all for the future. In the short-term future, you can stay tuned for a new video. I'll actually be doing another today because I screwed up yesterday, and I did a repeat of number 57. So I'd done number 57 way back months ago, and I forgot that I did it, and I made a bookkeeping error, and so I did it again yesterday. So I'm one day behind, and so I'll be hopefully trying to get another video in today to be able to catch up and be back on course. All right, so thanks for sticking around. Hit the like button. You can share the video with others, subscribe to the channel, make constructive comments in the comment section. You can look in the description and click the link to get the free guide to the 144 fractal faculties. And you can also donate directly to me through Cash App and Venmo. Stay tuned for future videos on each one of the 144 different fractal faculties. And hope you have a beautiful day. See you soon.